Okay, you guys are live.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Hi, I'm going to call the meeting to order 4:02. I'm going to quickly read the verbiage from the state. And while I do, if you guys will quickly pay attention and review the minutes from our meeting December 2nd, and then we'll get to Nick really quickly. So let me just go through that very fast. Today's December 21st, and pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order, imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Taxation Aid Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So with that said, anybody want to make a motion to approve the December 2nd minutes?
So moved.
Yep, so
I will.
Okay. Excellent. I will too, Liz. Everybody. So yes. Okay. Cool. Okay, Nick. Thanks for joining us. Brian, do you want to kick off Nick and bring him up to speed with why he's here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So we kind of left the conversation, I think, in the position of trying to work as, for lack of a better word, work as a team, the Taxation Aid Committee and the Board of Trust Funds. And perhaps the trust fund could be used as a conduit to the, I'm sorry, I said it backwards. The taxation aid could be used as a conduit to get to the trust fund for consideration for assistance. I guess it could work the other way too. So I shouldn't say that. It could probably work both ways. So we're just trying to feel out a good process of, you know, having vetting applicants. And, you know, one of the purposes of us applying for funding from the Metro West folks was to augment the Taxation Aid Committee. However, we could do it through the trust fund and use that funding as a source if we have a good vetting process in for that committee. So I kind of think you get where we're going here. And we're just trying to, you know, we're trying to work through how like this, we can, you know, envision this kind of working together. I think it's a great idea. It's just, we just gotta kind of figure out how we can, you know, use each other's strengths to kind of help as most people as we can. So any ideas are welcome.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think you know, just kind of given precedent, and you know, obviously this is a new partnership, so you know, we're kind of working with a blank chalkboard, but the areas that we, you know, might be able to be the most helpful for are the areas that are not addressed by the current, you know, kind of tax deferral guidelines. So if there's things that are kind of falling through the cracks that way, you know, that they wouldn't fall through our cracks because we're more need-based than, you know, age-based or whatever, you know, the criteria may be that are not need.
So you make a great point, Nick, and I forgot to mention that we do have, and you've mentioned it before, we do have that tax deferral fund, tax deferral program also that the assessor's office offers. So we've actually got a couple of areas we could leverage assistance, I think. Not only just taxation aid and the trust fund, but obviously this deferral program too. So I don't know if it requires creating a document, a comprehensive document of like maybe those 3 areas, or if there's any other areas, but we've had this conversation going on a little bit about a document for even more stuff in town, like all aid. So I'm not sure. I just don't know if it's something we need to work on creating for those like specific things, or, how we move forward.
It might be good just for the other members of our committee to just do something that's not necessarily completely formal, but, kind of more informative in intent. You know what I mean? Kind of laying out, this is kind of what, where the kind of open, where people fall through the cracks or where the need is. And how at least I can see how that fits in our criteria so that we can give it to people to brief ahead of, if there's a need we can fill, ahead of our votes.
Yeah, almost like a chart, right? You can almost have a
Yeah.
chart that shows the various things that, little rules, nothing too heavy, but just like little rules and thresholds that we all have. And then maybe put something together like that. And then I think the idea, Liz, was to, and group was to sort of go through our application process and then possibly forward that information in oh shoot, I don't know if I shared that with you, Nick, but to forward that information redacted, so you wouldn't necessarily have sensitive information, but to maybe the trust fund to review our applicants and see if there's anything that, we could do. But I kind of think that was where we were going, but
I think, so we're spending time as a group, Nick, talking about like how we're going to go through the applications, organize the candidates, and then make our decisions. And then I guess we envisioned that we would present that to you all in early March because the applications come in February. But the question, I guess, is like, do you want to give us like any kind of indication of like funds that you would like, and I guess an idea of like what kind of money you'd be talking about, or do you want us to just be like, here's what we have? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. So I actually haven't seen our end of the year statement. But we have, I think it's about what, 3.5 million now, Brian?
Yeah.
And
Total,
about
yep.
2/3 of that is cemetery.
Yep.
So we're, a little over $1 million, which is, money that's been bequeathed to the town under, I think it's 21 different trusts. And, the common denominator is residents and needy. And then there's a few that are smaller that are specific to something like veterans or whatever.
Okay.
So we that's just on our side. I'm just kind of telling you just so you kind of know the background. The intent is, well, I guess there was never a stated intent on how quickly or, when the funds would be used. They were just left. And so because of that, it's been interpreted as they're perpetual. So we manage them and disperse them, much like an endowment for a college.
Okay.
And our assumption has been historically, and we've kind of, it's kind of worked so far because the markets have been pretty good, that, we would aim to make something like whatever, 5 or 6% on the money. And, there's obviously an inflation factor. And, when you kind of net things out, we'd have about 2% of the total amount to give each year. Our applications have, been short of that. And we've gotten creative over the years on ways to, partner with other organizations like the Community Fund to find qualified, recipients. Our biggest issue is, interpreting something that's qualified because there's just a whole host of issues. But, for instance, if somebody's, a resident and their situation is so unsustainable, they're going to be, losing their house in a month or something, then they're not a resident in the eyes of town council the way they would interpret, you know what I mean? In 2006-ish or 5 or 6, when we, this money was kind of sitting there for years and nobody was doing anything with it. And then, I think it was 2003 or 4, Jack Kelly and Brian and I got organized in a committee. And, there was a lot of PR with like Metro West Daily News and things. And for a few years, we got a reasonable amount of applications. I'd say it's been a little bit light since like 2007, 8. You would have thought we would have had a lot of oil tanks to fill or something like that,
Yeah.
and we really didn't. And we honestly haven't gotten a ton of applications, during this whole COVID thing. So, we've probably got, I can't remember exactly what we spent year to date. We're July through June. I think what's our commitment level now? Are we close to 10, Brian?
Yeah, we've got to be right around there. Yeah.
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 So, I mean, we'll probably have to hold back maybe 3,000 or 4,000, maybe 5, just to be conservative on what we might get internally through the end of our fiscal year. So that's kind of at least probably 5. And then, the 2% is honestly purposefully it's a little bit light, just because we want to be conservative and target a lower amount, because, the sustainability of the funds is so important. But we've had so many years that we've done it. And the whole idea has been, well, if we ever had a really bad year, some kind of a catastrophe, we could push up to, 3, or, obviously it's somewhat discretionary. But, a number like 5,000 at least isn't scary right now.
Nick, how do people get referred to your fund? I mean, I've lived in town for a long time, and I've seen the name and things like that, but it never occurred to me that they're funds to support the residents.
Youth and Family has been really helpful. The Senior Center knows about us too. So, and when things come from those organizations, it's really good, because a lot of times the people referring them know more about the people. So, we have kind of an application which is not terribly long. If somebody's having, a reasonable amount, but getting that additional background from somebody else that already knows about the case is really helpful. But I'd say that's probably, 90% of our applications probably come from those too. Right, Brian?
Yeah, I would say occasionally we'll get like a drop in or something, but Nick's right. For the most part, I'd say 90% come from those 2 organizations.
Yeah. And I mean, we've been pretty creative too. I mean, we've had, one of the best stories was somebody had a very, very large electric bill, into the thousands. And, we actually called up National Grid, and we negotiated, a substantial discount to pay the whole thing off for them. So we've done things creatively like that to try to stretch the money as far as we can go and create win-win situations. We've talked to landlords about renters. People don't have to own a house. They could be a renter, and, if they have kids in school, I mean, that gives you a lot of, and their rent is, within their means. It gives you a lot of comfort. They're going to be a resident. So,
Yes, one of my questions would be, because we do this, we look at our applicants in February and then review them in March. How long would it take then for you to approve these funds that then we could go forth and give them their fund? I guess it's in April, May. So does it take a long time to get approval?
No. So the biggest issue would just be kind of information and follow-up questions. So I think, the more we know about what your application looks like and, what you're reviewing, the information you're getting from people kind of ahead of time, just so if there are questions about what might be informational gaps that, could be afterward that would cause a delay, that would be really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So at our next scheduled meeting, we could just circulate that and put that on our agenda just to talk about that.
Okay.
It's fairly the same process as the trust. Obviously, it's all a town process, so it's like a week or 2 turnaround to actually get money out from a meeting.
Okay.
Just about for anyone, like for you guys or trust fund, anyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting because we operate 100% by kind of the wishes of the people that left their money. So, unlike somebody with like a fixed budget and you're going to them to try to get a piece of a fixed budget, which may or may not already be allocated for an expense, like a town budget or something, we're like the other way. We have an amount that we, are kind of chartered to give every year, right? And it's just making sure that it's going to the right source or to the right, destination. It's kind of backwards. So, I mean, our decision process is less about how much to spend or where does it come from or any of that, and more about just, is it qualified? And,
Okay.
yeah.
That's super helpful, even just knowing the 5,000 figure as a ballpark, just because it's around what we gave last year. So like, that's very, you know what I mean? That's very helpful.
Yeah, because the needs may be a little bit higher this year just due to the pandemic. So I think that's one of the concerns. And I don't think we've taken in a lot of funds this year, Brian. Is that correct? We didn't really get a lot of donations to the funds. So we're not replenishing that as quickly, I guess I should say. But maybe that would be something we can look at.
Yeah, and we still need to make some decisions, you know, on how many people or how much we're willing to directly give out of your fund, of course. So we still have that little hurdle to cross down the road.
How many people are on your committee?
3 of us, and Brian is involved in all the meetings. So 3 voting, and then Brian's involved in our meetings.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll definitely give you the, you know, the tools that you need, that we'll give the backup so that you can evaluate the way we evaluated and have, you know, I mean, going forward after the first year, I think all of this might be somewhat more predictable. Maybe never. I don't know. Awesome. So would you consider that we're basically applying to you all the way you were saying other people apply? Is that kind of what we're doing? Is that the
Not really, because what we're basically doing here is we're going to look at your process on how you evaluate need, and if, as long as that isn't like, you know, grossly different than the way we would look at it, you know what I mean? And again, for us, we want to give, we just don't want to violate, you know, the legal interpretation of what people want to give money to. So as long as it's fairly consistent, and there's some subjectivity and grayness there, obviously, right? I mean, you know, I don't know if the 5th descendant of, you know, the Waldo Fay Fund is going to come up and, you know, sue us over misgiving their, you know, great grandmother's money, right? But we do want to stay very close to it, obviously. So it's really more that we are, your application is somebody applying to you, and then you've got, you know, this need, and we can basically approve it. So I guess it's like an indirect application. I mean, Southborough Community Fund, we work with them. You know, they know our criteria well. They've got this many people. They know this many people can kind of fit it. And if that defines, you know, in what we give them every year, and it has, and then they just substantiate it at the end of the year with, you know, something we can stick in our files on kind of where the money went.
Okay, cool. Well, I understand better. Thank you. Does anyone else have other questions for Nick?
Well, Nick, does your trust fund have a document that states the criteria for your funds? Excuse me?
No, we have 21 different wills, basically,
right.
21 different legal documents that are all written somewhat differently. And I mean, again, really the simplest way to do it is somebody who's a resident, you know, sustainable resident, somebody who, you know, forward looking, like a couple years out as a resident, and need, really. I mean, and need can be a one-time thing, or it can be a chronic thing where we and youth and family and somebody else are all, you know, working to create a sustainable situation out of what is unsustainable.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the criteria that this committee has, or at least is set up so far, would certainly fit mostly within the trust fund committee's criteria too, for the most part. I think, you know, just knowing what we saw last year, it's kind of, it's a good fit. I don't think there'd be a huge problem there. We may have some oddities, but most part. So I think if Jeff or Hal or Mary Ann, Liz, if you guys don't have any further questions, what I could plan on doing for our next meeting is put together a chart, like we mentioned, and just, you know, sharing it obviously to the committee, and I could forward it to the to Nick also, take a look at, And I think it might be useful just to have a little outline of, something in writing, just to kind of compare these, especially those 3 programs. And then we can, can only help.
Brian, you know who's putting a chart together like that, very extensive, is Sam Stivers.
Yes.
Have you seen that? I mean, really, that is pretty broad.
I saw a draft of it, yeah, and he's, yeah, you're right, he's working on that. I think that's great, actually.
Now,
So
I sent you some of that information from that previous document, that 2007.
Yep.
But I felt if you just added more to some of those areas, which means that it would be a little bit larger. But that does list all your deferrals. It lists, basically a lot of, support that you can receive.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very useful in the future
Right.
for not only this committee, but for the departments and for,
Right.
the trust committee also.
Yeah.
So Nick, one of the selectmen are doing well, you may know this, is doing like a pamphlet, and it's like more comprehensive. It's like
Mhm.
all the aid for town of Southborough residents, which is, obviously some things that we don't directly deal with, but it's a pretty good start. So we can piggyback off that too.
That's great.
Yeah. But I'll come up with something, just something simple for next meeting, and then we can maybe use it. And I think as we go along, as this committee goes along towards setting what we want to spend next year and all those kind of questions, we can circle the wagons with, with the trust fund committee too.
Looks like Sam is on, and he has chatted that he has updated the exhibit, including Marianne's comments, and will recirculate it soon. Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Sam.
Yes, thank you. Great.
Great. Well, I guess we should probably let Nick go. Should we, do you all want to stay and visit for a few more minutes on anything else, or we are scheduled for January 20th? Do we want to suspend till then?
I just have one comment. If Nick wants to leave the meeting, he may, but it really doesn't matter if you stay or not. I just put a few comments together that I can either send to you, Liz, or to Brian for next meeting. Just some ideas about, maybe how we want to look at our applicants. So that's.
Ooh,
that's
do you want to talk about it now, or
I can talk about it. I haven't formulated a lot. It was just a lot of notes that I took while I was talking with Pam from the senior center, and she just gave me a lot of ideas.
Yeah, Marianne, I'd probably send it to Liz or to me and Liz, whatever. We can.
Okay. All right.
Only because it's not on the agenda. I don't want to be too.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
And,
I
we just
didn't
gotta
want to
be
exclude
careful.
other people.
No,
Okay.
I
So
understand.
how should I respond to that, or do I wait and respond at the meeting, or can I respond over email? I'm so bad with these rules. Can I respond over email to Marianne?
You can always respond directly, like one-on-one. You just can't include like the whole committee. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just thought if I put them together, then the next meeting, you could put that on the agenda and
Yes.
Sure.
just discuss some of the things that we talked about.
Thanks, Marianne.
Yeah, no problem.
It's awesome.
Okay.
Are you all set with me?
We're all set, Nick. Have a good
Okay.
holiday.
Thank you.
Yes, you guys too. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Talk soon.
All right. Well, I think this is super encouraging for us, actually. It sounds like, reading between the lines, Brian, maybe you can confirm this. They've got money to give. It's just,
Yes. Yep. Yeah, it's not an unending pot, but it's a little more flexible than ours. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, yeah, Marianne, thanks for running with that. I think, why don't you if you want to send it to everybody one-on-one, everyone can respond to you before the next meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we can discuss it. Yeah, that sounds great that we can discuss it. We might want to meet. I was thinking maybe we could take couple months off in the summer or something, and instead we might want to meet like a few times in February, March as the applications are, I just think we might need to do that. I
That's a
don't
good
know.
idea. That's a good idea, I think.
Yeah, Brian, did you send that information to us? The data, and you were gonna, send an anonymous data to us so we could see.
Oh, yeah, no. I don't think you did. Remember the spreadsheet from last year?
Yeah, no, I gotta make another note. You're right, I didn't.
That's okay. I just thought maybe I missed it, so I just want to make sure I didn't miss it.
No, thank you.
No, yeah, no problem. I mean, we're in a different time zone here, so.
I'll do that very shortly.
Okay.
Okay,
And that way I just understand a little bit about,
sure.
what you looked at. Mhm.
Great. All right. Well, I guess I'll adjourn the meeting here at 4:28. Thanks everyone for jamming this in before the holiday. I guess I'll communicate with you all over email instead and see you in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy your holiday.
It's good.
Thanks,
Have a
you
great
too.
You
holiday.
too, Hal.
Happy New
Bye,
Year.
Liz. Bye, Brian.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
Marion.
Bye, Jeff.
Bye.